Just waiting for everybody else to join. Good evening, everybody. Nice to see so many of you on here. Oh my God, there's loads. Scrolling through. So you probably have heard and seen me and Claire a lot recently talking about the Artist Development Programme. And with that, we have our 10 pro trainers and 12 including me and Claire. So we really wanted just to give you the opportunity to get to know your pro trainers a little bit more. So each pro trainer is going to come on and talk to you about all different topics. The chat box is available, so if you do have any questions as you're going, please feel free to pop them in the chat box, and we'll keep stopping and going through the chat box and answering any questions that you have. So Claire is going to kick off today with a little bit on coming into the industry. So if anyone is quite a new PMU artist, she's going to kick off with this. We have also got some special offers for the first 10 people that join the Artist Development Programme. And we've got exclusive offers for any PMU Circle members, which will be an ongoing discount. And then we've also got a little offer for anyone that's not in the PMU Circle and wants to join. So keep your eye out for these, because I will post them in the chat box. We're going to do £395 off the first 10 places for the Artist Development Programme. So once they're gone, they're gone. So keep your eyes peeled for that little offer. Oh, we've just got some more people in the waiting room. Let me just let them in.
I'll get them, Leila. I'll let everyone in.
Oh, thanks, Paula. I am quite multitasking.
I'll do that bit. That's my job for the night.
You ain't getting out of talking.
I'll try.
Is it full? Someone's just saying they can't get on because it's full. Is that the case?
100 people will be the max.
We are now. We're at capacity. We've got our 100.
Oh, wow. 100.
That was quick. So I am recording this though, so if anyone that can't get in now live, they can catch the replay.
Huh?
And we're not going to announce the discount codes until the end, so that everyone else hopefully will get a chance to get at them. Okay, so I'm going to pass you over to Claire, who's going to kick off tonight. Hello.
Hi, hello. Can you hear me all right?
Yep, got you.
Yeah, good. You'd have to bear with me because I actually wrote this out earlier so that I don't get all tongue-tied and start rambling. So I'm just going to read it out to you. It's just a little introduction, what the Artist Development Programme is to me, and then just literally 5 really short things that I would say to anyone that's new in the industry. So my name's Claire, for those of you who don't know me. I'm a PMU artist, and I also work and train alongside with Leila. We teach a variety of level of courses, so all the way from beginners to advanced masterclasses. And of course, we offer support with the amazing PMU Circle and the e-learning platform. If you don't know about that, then you need to find out. The Artist Development Programme is something that I wish I'd have had access to when I first started. I mean, I was fortunate enough to have Leila on hand, but even with her right next to me, we know she's a busy bee, and I thrive on support. I love having someone who I can bounce off of, ask 10 million questions, and just have a little bit of support. So this is a little bit of where the Artist Development Programme comes in. You will be able to have support from a one-to-one basis from your amazing trainers that are all here today. We've got educational content and videos on the learning platform, which is going to cover everything you need to know for Browse, which is what we're launching first. During training, there's only so much in the beginning you can learn, and if you're anything like me, you want to know everything straight away, and it's just not possible. So if you're newly qualified or you need to expand your knowledge a little bit, the Artist Development Programme is going to be amazing for you. From my own experiences being new in the industry, I came to realise quite quickly how individual PMU is to the artist. I regularly got myself swept up in what others was doing. I saw everyone doing amazing work, and obviously I wanted to recreate it. But I also needed to give myself a little bit of time to realise that I need to develop who I am as an artist. So something I like to put forward and take away with students is that you need to figure out what works for you. That can be your tools, your pigments, needles. They're all designed to work, but we all use them differently. So my top tips would be, have confidence in adapting techniques. So you will learn on the artist development program the way that me and Layla work. We work differently, and you'll see that in the demonstrations that we do. And then you're also going to find out from the pro trainers who also may work differently from us. So the idea is not this is the only way that we are saying that you need to work, but just to take on board from everyone and learn to adapt your own techniques and hopefully get the confidence to be able to do that. My next top tip was take your time, because I cannot work under pressure and stress, and it just drives me insane. So allow yourself some breathing room for moments of uncertainty. My next tip is reach out to your peers. We are so lucky that we have got the PMU Circle as a forum. Everybody on there is so willing to help and more than happy to give advice. So definitely reach out for help. Don't think you're going through it alone. And also a problem that you're dealing with now, no doubt everybody's had a similar problem in the past. And then my other thing to just finish on is your colour theory. Learn it, break it down. There's many different ways you can learn it. There is obviously the courses that are available. And if you're a visual learner like me, you might want to go down the route of making your drawdowns of your colour pigments, where you mix it with the water and you can put it onto some paper. You can also make it in the little glass tubes with water, and that will help draw down the undertones of the pigment. So yeah, just do what works for you, take your time, and you can never absorb enough knowledge, which hopefully is what the rest of the pro trainers are going to talk to you about from their side. That's it from me.
Amazing, thank you. Poor Lucy, she was late joining, and because we're now at maximum capacity, it won't let her in. So
Oh no.
sorry, I shouldn't laugh. So we're going to keep an eye on it, but if not, what we'll do, one of us will jump out and let Lucy come in. So we'll just make sure we do questions kind of before we move on. So if anyone does have any questions for Claire, feel free to shout them over. Sorry, it tickled me. But so I'm going to go straight over to Debbie, who's going to be talking to you a little bit about working parameters. Parameters, and it's just starting more from like a beginner aspect as well. So then we'll kind of start moving through. So Debbie, and then I just need you to unmute for me, Debbie.
Right, I think I've done it. Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Okay, brilliant, thank you. Right, I'm Debbie Clifford. I am married to Jasper Schultes, and together we are DC Micro and GoldenEye. So I've been in the industry a little while now, coming up for 13 years. No beauty background, just walked into a salon one day and next thing I knew, I was lying on the bed and I got sold my first course. And I think that's really vital to know that it was my first course. And realised after that, I felt like I was in a library asking for a book and knew very, very little about it. And if we think of ourselves, if we look at these amazing athletes that sort of cross this finish line, what we don't know is their progress and their journey, that when they were tiny, they learned to sit up, and then they learned to crawl, then they learned to walk, then they were in their first sports day race at school, and then they went on to kind of junior, this, that and the other. And before, so much training happened before they ever got that Olympic gold medal. And we have to think in our careers that we have to follow a little bit of that pattern, and we only see the success in the light of obviously the practice that's done in the dark. So all these people that we aspire to be, and when we do our brow goals and all this kind of hashtags and we see all this incredible work, it is just the effort that has gone in. But it's all effort and that we are taught. So I work very much on parameters, and I'll explain a little bit about parameters. So it is the thinking behind why we do everything. So when we pick, for example, the first parameter, which technique are we going to use? Are we going to use, a zigzag? Are we going to do little tight circles? Are we going to do loops? Are we going to do a pendulum? Are we going to do whip shading? What technique are we picking? So that's number one parameter. Then within that parameter, we want to think about our hand speed. And is our hand speed going to be very slow? Is it going to be medium? Is it going to be fast? That would be our second working parameter. Then it's the angle of the needle. So if you are working at 90 degrees, you're not going to have the same implantation of pigment that you would do at 60 degrees. And you're definitely not going to have the same implantation that you would at 45 degrees. So depending on the outcome of the result that you're wanting, you have to look at all the parameters, so the angle. Now, projection of the needle is absolutely vital. So if you are, I've just heard today that we're actually starting on the brows, but for example, if you're going to line a lip and your needle is pointing outside the lip border, so instead of going along it, and you're pointing outside, you'll actually get migration of pigment outside the lip and you won't get a crisp line. So projection has got to be really important. Stretch is a parameter. I'm going to put that in a parameter because if your skin isn't like a drum skin, you won't have a good working surface. Then the relation of you with the client. Where are you going to sit in relation to you and the client? Are you going to work from the side? Are you going to work from the back? How are you going to work? Because you'll find that your pressure will vary depending on which side. And we often find that we have a brows, especially one side is easier than the other. And if you're doing strokes, some seem to be a little bit more upright than others. So it's looking at where you can work best in relation to the client. Then we're going to look at the machine speed. And the machine speed is really important. So, for example, your machine speed's like a hammer, let's say. And if you want to hit a tiny little nail into a glass or something to put a little sparkly thing on a glass or something kind of cute to do a bit of home decorating and you weren't using glue, you'd use a really tiny little toffee hammer. But if you wanted to sort of drill something into a wall, then you would need a really powerful hammer. So when you're working on delicate skin, you're obviously going to want a different machine speed than if you're going to be working on scarred skin, which is going to be tougher. So all these different things are going to be making a difference. Then obviously your colour. So your colour selection, and that's a whole topic in itself. So we pick our colour selection, and sometimes you don't need to change colours to get different hues and different tones, because depending on the other parameters of your machine speed and your hand speed, your technique and the angle, you can achieve different results using only one colour. So you don't necessarily have to chop and change. And for beginners, this is why we perhaps say you can get different results, but just by changing your parameters. Then obviously consistency of the pigment. So whether you want your pigment to flow really nicely for hair strokes, or whether you want to make it a more oil-based pigment, that also will determine the outcome that you're going to get. And then just a bit of a side note, my little soapbox thing is pigment legislation. So if there's anything that is to do with pigment legislation, that's my hot topic. I am all for keeping up to date with pigment safety, because today we don't have asbestos in our homes, and we don't have lead paint that we paint children's furniture with, you know, so that's another of my hot topics. But often if we find that we are struggling to get pigment in the skin because the skin is oily or something like that, you have to change your parameters, and you just have to keep it very, very simple. You don't change them all at once. It's like a recipe. You have to find one that is not working for you, and then adapt and change. So it's going to be quite a long Zoom meeting if everybody talks for as long as I have just now. So I'll shut up. Hope that I've made my introduction okay and kind of quite clear. But I like to simplify everything into how you do it and why you need to do it. So there's an amazing lineup of professionals out here who are super, super talented. And I'm really looking forward actually to listening to everybody and hear what they have to say and learning from myself, because I'm still on my journey. So I'm waiting for the gold medal, actually. I haven't got one yet. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. I think you pretty much at your gold medal. Literally, Debbie is one of the most knowledgeable people that I know in this industry. Any questions, and you can go to Debbie and she'll know the answer. So yeah, that was brilliant. Thank you. And sometimes it is, isn't it? It's the simplest things that we kind of skim over and don't pay attention to, and then wonder why we get different results. Danielle is asking, where do we find the latest information regarding the pigment legislation?
European Chemicals Agency. Yeah.
So you can just Google it, can't you? There's stuff online now about it.
Yeah, so you want, the new legislation will hit in 2022, and you want, they have what's called REACH compatibility, which is within ECHA, with the European Chemical Agency, and it's setting new standards for pigment safety.
Okay.
Yeah.
Amazing, thank you. Okay, so I'm going to jump to Alice, who is going to talk to you a little bit about microblading and retention.
Good evening, everyone. I hope you're okay. Like Debbie, I'm totally reeling and excited at the prospect that we can all go back to work next week, actually on real live human faces. How amazing is that? And I'm sure the ladies and gentlemen here have got some really good tips for you all to try out. So make sure that you've got your notepads, and if you're watching this back on the recording, take this opportunity to take some notes down. I'm a big believer in that. So I've been in the beauty industry for around 10 years. Not quite as long as that in semi-permanent makeup, but my skills, my journey, again, Debbie talked about her journey. I think this will probably be a recurring theme for a lot of us, because it definitely is a journey. Started out in microblading. So that is something that is kind of my passion, I suppose. I love all of it, but I do still do a lot of microblading. And I'm going to talk a little bit about retention, because retention and microblading is it's one of the things that a lot of artists will really struggle with microblading. When we're microblading, we're using such a tiny little blade, and in fact the technology for making blades is advanced even since I started, and we're now producing as an industry microblades which are even smaller and smaller, and that means they carry less pigment. So that's one of the reasons that people will struggle with retention with microblading, is that the size of your needle, the size of those series of pins, just won't necessarily hold a great deal of pigment. So what do we do about that? the biggest mistake that I see, and I see this too with general PMU, is that if you go to make your mark on the skin and you come away and it doesn't look like you've made much of a mark, natural instinct sometimes is to go deeper. And you'll hear all of the trainers at this point will recoil and go, oh, no, don't do that. But it is the natural, it's the natural thing to do, is to think, right, that didn't work. I'm going to go deeper. I'm going to go harder. And that can just cause far more problems than it solves. There are so many elements which all combine together, again, like that recipe that Debbie was talking about, to get your perfect heel, to get your perfect retention. And with microblading, one of them is depth, but depth doesn't necessarily mean pressure. It just means that we need to be opening the skin very lightly. But the thing that I think most of us miss, either as microblading artists or as PMU artists, is saturation. And saturation is totally different to pressure. It can look similar on the skin, but it's totally different. So with a hair stroke, either done with a machine or with a microblade, I want to see a really good amount of colour in that stroke. Because if that stroke is really fine and really faint, once the skin has done its thing and it's healed, we're just not going to see a loss of colour. So saturation is really key, and saturation without pressure. So how do we do that? How do we get more ink, more pigment into a stroke without more pressure? Well, there's a couple of things that we can do. If needed, we can revisit that stroke. We can revisit very, very lightly, again, not using any more pressure. And we are just revisiting. It's like giving a second coat on a wall. If you were to paint your kitchen wall and you can still see that it's a bit patchy, what you would do, you wouldn't necessarily use a darker paint or more pressure on your roller, but you might go in and give it another coat. So another light coat, a bit more ink into your stroke will help with that retention. We can also mask. So I know that Layla is a huge fan of doing this on a lot of the videos that I've seen. When you're not working the brow, when you've wiped off to have a look and see what's going on, take that opportunity to pop some secondary numbing on if you use it, and pop some pigment on. Let that skin really soak up the pigment. So that's another way of getting more pigment into your stroke, into the skin, without using more pressure. And soak at the end as well. So mask in between, and then what I call it is a pigment push, a really good soak at the very end when I know that my work is done. Really is sort of a parting shot. Again, get some pigment on, get a bit of cling film over the top so that it's not dry and you're not having to fight with it when you wipe it off. And use those last 5 to 10 minutes of your procedure to soak the pigment into the skin. Use that time to chat with your client about the aftercare, to chat with them maybe about booking their retouch appointment in. But a good 5-10 minutes at the end of your procedure, again, really, really helps. So those are a couple of things to have a think about for retention. Making sure that you're getting enough pigment saturation without using more pressure, either by revisiting the work very, very lightly, as in that kind of second coat that I was talking about, and making sure that you're masking as you go along. And that really is the key to getting good retention, is to making sure that your work has got enough saturation. I hope that helps.
Amazing, thank you, Alice.
No, you're welcome.
Nicole was asked, would you put the pigment before numbing or after when you're soaking?
So I generally put it on after. I'll have a wipe of my work, have a good inspect and see where I am. I will pop a little bit of numbing on. I like these little disposable lip gloss applicators. They're kind of furry on the end. It's almost like a little microfiber end. So I'll have a little swoosh over with some numbing, and then I'll usually put the pigment on top, purely because that's the way that I do it. But if it's all kind of mixing together, it's probably not going to make too much difference, but that's generally what I tend to do. Tiny little amount of numbing so that we're not making the skin too tough, and then a little bit of a pigment mask over the top, maybe a little bit of cling film.
Amazing, thank you very much. Thank you so much, Alice, that was brilliant. Yeah, saturation is definitely key, never pressure. And I was just going to say, pigment soaking, you've got to get some push in there, Alice. It's literally like the golden product. And I see Tanya's just said, what about using push? When would you put that on? So I normally, a bit like what Alice said, I don't know how much difference it makes in what order you put it on, but the same, I will normally put a little bit of anaesthetic on, and then my pigment and my push, I mix it in. And then a bit of cling film on top. I probably overuse push, to be fair, but I absolutely love the product, and especially where the numbing cream, it does toughen the skin, so the push just helps to soften it back down again and keeps everything in a really nice...
No, I've not used push yet, but I've heard some very good things about it, so maybe it's something that I
send you some. Honest to God, you have to try it, it's amazing.
And the one thing that I didn't say, and I've actually written it down in big red letters for me not to forget, is don't worry if your work comes back from that first session and the retention isn't kind of totally on point. It takes a while to master that, and there are so many things that make a difference, and I would rather have 100 clients come back with barely anything than for them to come back greyed out, blurred out, and too much. You can always add more, but taking away is really difficult. So layer lightly, use a light hand, and don't worry if your retention isn't on point to begin with. I don't think it was for any of us. So yes, lighter, but not more pressure.
Amazing, thank you very much, my lovely. Yeah, God, I think it took me years before I see Hilled results coming back that I was truly happy with. So definitely don't be too hard on yourself if you are quite new into your career. It does come with experience. Alice, stay there. Carly said participants is at 99. So you might be all right, stay there. Right, so I'm going to shoot over to Emily next, who's going to be giving you some tips on her lip work. And we've also got a module coming to the PMU Circle Pro, if you're in there, from Emily very soon on her amazing lip blend. So let's get Emily up, and I'll be trying to get Lucy in.
Hi guys. Oh, sorry, just changed my... Yeah. Hi everyone. Seen a lot of familiar faces, or a lot of familiar names. So yeah, great to see you all. So yeah, how do I follow on from that? Okay, so I'm Emily. I've been in the industry, well, I've been in the beauty industry for probably about 23, 24 years, really showing my age, and probably permanent makeup for about 8 years now. I was specialising in brows for quite a long time, and I have to admit, I hated lips. It was like the worst. It was probably even worse than eyeliner. I just hated lips. For me, it was just brows. And I thought, right, I've got to change my game. How do I start liking them? And I think the key is just to do more. So I just put an offer out, and I thought, right, you get what you put out. So obviously, when you come to social media, if you're not posting lips, you're never going to get the bookings for lips. So for me, I just thought, right, I'll do an offer. I had lots of my clients that thought, yeah, we'll take you up on that. And actually, I did loads of clients based on the back of that. So then I got the photos. So then I posted the photos, and now I'd probably say I get as many lips as I do brows. So that's kind of just a little tip on how to sort of maybe get the practice up, because I think if you're not doing enough, then it's hard to get kind of familiar with it. I am doing the lip module, so yeah, Layla's just mentioned that obviously I've got that on the PMU Circle Pro, so that's coming up in the next couple of months. You will see me doing a full treatment on latex, You'll see snippets of a webinar that's coming up, and I'm also going through the lip mapping. So that brings me on to kind of like tips on lip mapping. So you really, with lip mapping, you really want to keep it simple. I'd probably say the same with brows as well, but probably even more so with lips. Sometimes you see people, they map the deaf out things, you know, it's almost, you see lines everywhere, and it's kind of like, that can get quite confusing. You really want to keep it very simple. So for lips, it really is a case of getting that center point, you know, getting that kind of Cupid's bow, the height, and that's kind of it really. And then a lot of it is based on kind of freehanding and using your eye as well. So as long as you've got those basic points in, it's just, the simpler the better, because you can over map, and that goes for anything. That goes for brows or lips. The next thing is the stretch. Again, I would say that differs slightly from eyeliner and brows. You know, everyone says you have to stretch the life out of things, and you kind of do when you're doing like brows and eyeliner. You need a really good stretch. With lips, stretch is important, of course, but because the lip tissue is a lot thinner, it's a lot more sensitive. You don't actually need to stretch like you would with the other areas. You have to have enough of a stretch. It's quite good to, rather than stretching like the whole lip, you want to work in sections. So, you know, make that stretch quite, you know, smaller and tighter, but you don't want to overstretch it, because you can risk overstretching, and, you know, the lip is going to be more prone to like bruising and that type of thing. So that's another tip. Another one, Layla has actually touched on this, is push.
We know you're a huge fan.
Yeah, we started talking about it, I was like, that's what I was going to say. If there is one product that you will literally use the death of, it is push. Please get it. Whoever doesn't use it, I promise you, it's magic in a bottle. Debbie and Jasper will know that I'm a big fan of push. I go on about it all the time, but it's good for everything. But lips are amazing. Lips are obviously very prone to swelling. You know, and even if you're the best artist in the world, you work lightly, all that kind of thing, some clients will just swell up. I mean, you know, there's no two ways about it. Push just has that natural kind of anti-inflammatory, it's anti-irritant, it's really calming. I use it throughout, so I will literally use it like in between my passes, and when I mask, that applies to brows and lips. I'll always mix it in with the push as well. It's great for the end of a procedure, because it actually, if you are going to be prone to a lip, you know, if the lips start feeling like they're overworking a little bit, put a bit of push on. You know, if you're working on the top lip, you see it going a little bit, oh, it's swelling up a bit, put a bit of push and then leave it, go on to the bottom, and I guarantee by the time you go back to the top, it's already calmed down. So that's definitely a product, and at the end of the treatment, definitely put it on as well, because, you know, like I say, they may have a little bit of swelling, and some people like a bit of swelling, but when it comes to the photos, it's quite nice when your lips are a little bit more calmed down. So push is an absolute must. Another thing as well is, I don't personally pre-numb the lips or the brows, actually. I know some people are like, oh my god, how would you not do that? Pre-numbing, I find it really toughens up the skin, and I find it can really work. It can be kind of a bit counterproductive for the lips. I find it toughens the lips up so much that actually when you're working on it, sometimes the pigment might not flow in as nicely, so then you're almost overworking the skin to try and get it in. You're probably better, or for me personally, I tend to, once I've done all my mapping and my drawing, no numbing whatsoever, I will etch the outline in slowly enough that it goes in, that you're not overworking it, you're still working quite superficial, you're not going in too deep, especially with lips. You get that outline in, then what I tend to do is just scratch the skin very slightly. You're not even putting pigment in at this stage, you're just breaking the skin, and I'm not going to go into numbing creams, obviously, but then I put, you know, it's advised you put a bit of a secondary numb, leave it, and I'll put push over the top. What the push again will do will kind of counteract that that effect that the numbing has. You know, when the numbing toughens up the skin, it kind of counteracts that, so it just softens up the skin. The skin's nice and numb, but you know, it's nice and soft and you can work over it. So that's the kind of tip for me when it comes to numbing. Personally, for me, if there is a client that I know just finds everything painful, there's the odd occasion that I have pre-numbed, but I have found over time my retention and just my work is just better and more productive when I don't pre-numb. So that's just kind of me. Another thing, when it comes to passes, don't be so hit on how many passes have you done. You know, have you done 2 passes? Have you done 1 pass, 3 passes, 4 passes? Every lip, every client is different. The main thing is making each pass count. So, you know, if you do 2 passes, great, and it looks great, fine, done, finished. If it takes you 5 passes, it takes you 5 passes. And if you're using push, you probably can do more passes because it calms the skin down. But yeah, don't get too hot on that. Obviously, when you're starting out as well, it will take you a bit longer, and that's fine. Just make sure you're working lightly enough. You're not going too deep, where you're going to risk bruising the skin. And yeah, you know, but when it comes to passes, just don't get too hot on what everybody else is doing. And that's the same with I hear a lot, you know, what machine speed do you use? Again, you know, whatever treatment you're doing, whether it's lips, brows, eyeliner, it's a really hard question to answer. I'm sure everyone here will probably agree with me. You know, with lips, I use the Valhalla machine now, and you know, I probably outline with maybe like a 10 on lips, probably an 11 on brows, which sounds really high, especially if you're using something like the Zion. But again, that's me, and that's, you know, a lot of that's to do with my hand speed as well. So it doesn't mean that you're going to use the same. It's really key that you practice what's right for you. So you get an idea of what people use, then go away, practice on latex, get that kind of hand speed and machine speed, and you will find what's right for you. So yeah, there are a few tips.
Amazing. You've got a few questions coming in. Danielle said, how much push would you use on lips on average?
I mean, I use it probably for every pass. I mean, you don't need a lot. You know, it's a really kind of smooth gel. You need a tiny amount that I put you can put on a cotton bud or even on one of those micro brushes, as long as it just, you know, because it slides, it's quite slippery, so it slides really easily, so you really don't need to use a lot. I mean, you know, you have the bottle of push and it lasts for ages.
That's your me.
I'm trying to think, how much would I use in a treatment? You know, maybe in a whole treatment, maybe like a 10 pp, no, not even 10p, that's quite a lot. I don't know, maybe 20 pp's for like a whole treatment, because you need a tiny amount each time. I mean, Debbie and Jasper, you know, Debbie will probably be able to sort of answer that as well. Like, but yeah,
I think Debbie normally says like a pea-sized amount.
Yeah, I mean, I said 10 p, ignore that. Yeah, probably.
Unless you're us slapping it on.
I do use it a lot. Like Layla, I probably use it too much. You can't use it too much.
Joanne said, would you leave it on for them to go home, or do you take it off before?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I mean, what I tend to do is, like I said, I put it on at the end. Sometimes I'll put it on with a bit of a mask as well. So then I would because obviously that will help with that saturation, like what Alice was saying about kind of saturation at the end. That really helps with retention. So obviously you'd wipe that off. And then obviously some people use aloe vera. They use different types of shine for the photos. Again, push is great for that as well. I tend to use the push right at the end. It gives the lips a shine. It's great for the photos, and then they can walk out with it and they're fine. So yeah. And
then if they're cleaning after anyway, aren't they, when they, like, you know, in a few hours they're gonna wipe it off. Joanne said, what pigments do you find gives the best retention on lips, and also in what circumstances, if any, do you ever go outside of the natural border? I was taught not to, but I see lots of work that looks like they have gone outside.
Yeah, so pigments, I think most people know, I'm probably my fan. Yeah, so I mean, I've used, you know, obviously I've been in the industry for a while. I've used like almost all of them. I've used loads of pigments, and good ones, not so good ones. And I did stumble across Goldeneye. Well, I mean, they've been around for ages, and I think I might have used them years ago actually, and then I don't know why I didn't carry on. But anyway, I'm glad I found them again. And yeah, I mean, Goldeneye, they definitely changed my lip game. There's obviously different variables. You have to look at everything, you know, needle, machine, technique, experience, and combine that with everything. But pigment is a big factor for me, and one of the key points for me with Goldeneye that sold me, aside from what they look like and what they retain in the skin like, is the safety aspect of Goldeneye. That's a massive thing for me. So that's what kind of enticed me to go and try them. But then, you know, saying that, if they were really rubbish and you know, I wasn't getting great attention, then I would have to think, right, what do? You know, do you use a safe pigment that's rubbish, or do, you know? So, but luckily they were great, and it's definitely changed my lip game. I've done a lot more lips since using Goldeneye, and the clients that have come back have had great retention. So yeah, Goldeneye all the way for me. Saturation is great for Goldeneye. And then with regards to the lip border, yeah, I mean, it's not really advised to, you know, to go into something, right, I'm going to go over that lip border. There are obviously circumstances, but a lot of that tends to be more maybe advanced correctional work. You know, you get people with maybe a cleft lip, or just that real asymmetrical kind of lip that if you totally went within, you know, the lip line, it's going to look a little bit odd, and you have to sort of, as a professional, you have to decide whether you can take something like that on. I don't tend to really go outside that lip border. I always say to the client, you know, it's not about making your lips bigger or anything like that, but you know, you go within the line, but you can go sort of just outside the line or inside the line, depending whether you want that lip to look slightly fuller or not. Yeah, I try to not go onto the outside of the lip tissue as much as possible, just because obviously the lip tissue and the skin are two different types of skin, and you'll probably find they will heal slightly differently, so then there will be a little bit more work to be done to try and kind of counteract that, you know, difference. So try where you can not to. If you don't feel it's within your skill set, then kind of pass it on and maybe advance your skills with a bit of correctional work. It definitely can be done in the right way, but it's not advised as just a day-to-day lip, really, to go outside the lip line.
Amazing, thank you, Emily, that was really, really helpful. Thank you very much. We've got loads of Goldeneye questions coming in now, and push questions, which is amazing, and we will go back over all the questions at the end, but I just want to be conscious to move on, because we've got a lot of trainers to have a chat with. If you haven't seen, we did actually do a Zoom, was it last week? Or this week, I don't even know what day it is anymore. I think it might have, yeah. But on Goldeneye, on DC Micro's YouTube channel, is it on DC Micro, the YouTube? Yeah, there is a replay on there. So we done, Debbie done a whole talk on colour essence pigments and the colour theory with them, and using Skin Top and Easy Flow. And we also done one a few months ago with Holger from Goldeneye, which you can find on DC Micro's YouTube as well, and that one's also on our YouTube. So there's definitely some amazing content for you to watch if you do want to know a little bit more about them. So next I'm going to jump to Ian, who's going to have a little chat with you about pigment dilution. So just moving while we're on this topic of pigments, now is a good time to introduce you to Ian.
Hey everybody. I suppose I'm quite a baby in terms of the industry itself. I trained initially with Debbie Clifford about 2 years ago now. I kind of just jumped straight into the industry and went from international headhunting to 40, 50 hours a week. That was it, actually. So I've learned a hell of a lot. I've made a hell of a lot of mistakes in that time. And I think for new artists as well, I suppose my point of what I want to discuss today being pigment dilution, I'm always getting my trainees to dilute the pigments, because I think sometimes we choose certain brands, let's say Tina Davies, who has a much larger molecule size, and that thing's not coming out your skin anytime soon. And that's not a knock on Tina Davies, because I think with the right clients, it may be the right brands, but there's certainly different brands out there and why I choose them. I personally learned everything with GoldenEye, organic pigments. Since then, I've used Monica Varnies. I love them. I've used Loaded. I've now got Brow Daddies. My attention span is a little bit like a goldfish. I'll need something to keep me excited. So for me, I'll just keep buying things, and I buy new machines and new needles because I just like the experiments, and I want to meet a client with problematic skin purely because I like it. I like a challenge. If somebody sends me a cover-up, I'll have a go at it. If it's at a certain point, if it's obviously past a certain point, we'll want removal. So for me, it's always been about, look, let's understand why we do certain things. And I suppose my background, I do a lot of art. So if I was to do painting or do a lot of realism art and building that up slowly. So my view on pigment choice was always to dilute. Now, personally, I always dilute with witch hazel, distilled witch hazel. It's got alcohol-free in, which I think is really, really important because alcohol can irritate the skin. And for me, it's always taking down that redness. So my clients are quite varied, being Bradford Leeds. We've got a lot of Indian, Pakistan clients. I advertise to a mixed race clientele because, do you know what, they've got beautiful skin to work with. So I'm not stupid. Instagram pictures look amazing. And that in itself drags in other people. But we've got quite a mixture. And I remember working on redheads in the early days, and I hated redheads. Paul McDonald's probably got this problem in Scotland. You get a lot of pasty skin up there, and a lot of redheads. And I used to absolutely dread a redhead until I started using witch hazel. And that, for me, just took all of that problem away. So my first pass made dilute by up to 50%, especially when I think they may have sensitive skin. I want to see how it reacts. Don't want to over-pigment it, especially if they've got really cool skin as well. So it's always less is more. And I suppose I had that drilled in at me in basic training with Debbie at the very beginning. Less shape, less size, less saturation, less is more all the time. So it was always for me about doing that. And another little tip as well was sensitive skin. I suppose if you look at sensitive nature of skin and why it's sensitive, it's all to do with our blood cells and what happens. So you put something foreign into the body, your blood cells will either identify that as a threat, and the next time you do it, it's not too bad. So I'll always find that the second and third time with somebody else sensitive skin, it isn't too bad. They've getting used to the molecules within the skin. They've identified it isn't a threat. So sometimes my first picture on somebody with really sensitive skin isn't the greatest. My second and third on the top-ups, absolutely fine. I get this amazing picture, and they don't have this response that a lot of other people have to it. I also use little ice packs. So in between sessions, I'll put a bit of this on a cotton pad, put it on, and then snap packs, I'll ice the actual eyebrow itself, and you'll literally see the redness go before your eyes. And then I'll go back to it. So I'll leave that on whilst I do the other brow, and then come back to it. So for me, that was a big game changer on redheads. And if you think about it, if you injure yourself, what's the first thing you do? You ice it. You put an ice pack in to stop blood from travelling there. So that's exactly what I did. I iced it. So little things like that aren't the normal PMU kind of done things, but for me, it's made a massive difference. And I suppose I look at a lot of tattooists and how they work, and I try and take up the principles from the tattoo background because I've got an interest in that, and then kind of adding it into there. So just, dilute your products, understand your brands, why you're using certain brands, ask whoever's selling you the brand. You know, if you went to Monica or whatever, you'd ask more about the brand, they'd be more than happy to help you and why you would use it on certain skin types. That's pretty much it for me.
Amazing. I love listening. I love like how everyone works differently and everyone's got their go-to way of doing it. Alex has asked, what's the name of that product? And Josephine said, where do you buy the alcohol-free witch hazel?
From Killer Inc. It's just called witch hazel, alcohol-free.
Brilliant. Gal said, what do you think of the Brow Daddy pigments? Have you had a chance to use them?
I've tried them yet. I think they should get delivered next week, and obviously lockdown. So I'm keen to try them. I do a lot of pixel work. I like exaggerated fade. I use 2 and 3 different colours sometimes in one brow, as well as then diluting this. So I'm always mixing things up, and it's purely boredom with me. I get bored doing the same thing. So I like to mix it up.
But do something. It's nice to know, like, as well, like, sometimes throwing yourself out of your comfort zone, and don't be scared to mix it up a little bit. What brand of pigment would you recommend a beginner uses?
It's a tough one. Again, I suppose Monica Varney's is 4 colours. If you're going to really dumb it down, then you're going to struggle with understanding colour theory, fine. But what I'd say is go back to your trainer. If they're not teaching you colour theory, they need to be. You know, I was taught well by Debbie, so I think I understand what's in there. You know, I can literally take it, like you mentioned earlier, about just popping it into water, seeing what colours emerge before your eyes, putting it on a bit of paper, watering it down so you can see the different colours within the brown, kind of splitting. So I think you should go back to basics.
Well, Esther's kind of asking, so I'd like to think she knows her colour theory.
There's not many other people in the industry, let's say, that know more about colour theory than probably me.
Thing is, you could literally teach colour theory for weeks, couldn't you? And I think as well now with social media, everyone gets a bit of FOMO because everyone you see are using different products, and then you're like, oh, what's that? What's that? I want to try this. I want to try that.
Also, it's about the healed results. I know that Monica's, for me, they've almost got an ashy tone, but I've got a lot of mixed race clients, so I don't really care if it's that slightly ashy tone because the core of my clientele is there. And then with other clients, I'll use a different brand. So I'm always switching brands for different skin types that are going to be presented. You don't always get that. Some people I train, they literally will deal with Caucasian skin, that's it. So they're never going to need a real dark brown.
Yeah, definitely. And knowing the like the pigment load, I think, to your pigments is very important. Like sometimes when I see beginners on Tina Davies and Permablend and they're oversaturating and they're going deep, and you're like, oh, it's like it's permanent. It's going to be there forever. So knowing how to not like you said, Ian, they do have their place definitely. For certain skin types or certain finishes, but it's knowing how to work with them, isn't it? As long as you're taught how to work with them.
I think for me with Tina, it's got larger molecule, it doesn't budge at the skin. So if I want a real pixelated effect, it can be quite good, but I'm using a very minimal amount. I'm really lightly doing it. The other thing, if I look from a complete profit point of view, I've diluted something. It's going to fade faster, isn't it? I want my back.
I want it back.
But why not? If they want this exaggerated makeup look, there's only so many times you can do that before it turns into a powder brown. If I'm diluting it, I've got more sessions with them. I've got more money coming in, and it comes back down. We don't work for free, do we?
Yeah, no. Yeah. Good chat. Well, thank you very, very much. That was great. Even I learned something as well. I've never thought to dilute with witch hazel. So brilliant. Okay, so next we are going to jump to Mary Hall Scott, who I believe has got a nice little presentation for you. So let's mix it up a little bit. So Mary's going to be talking machines and needles. Ah, there you are.
Hello, hi. Can you hear me okay?
Got you, yeah. What time is it over there, Mary? Afternoon?
It's only 4 o'clock here, so it's early here. So I'm going to share screen and let me know. Can you see this?
Yeah, we got it.
Okay. So this is just going to be real quick, but I put a little presentation together. I actually took this out of a presentation. My name is Mary Hall Scott. I've been in the industry for about 9 years. I own Micro PMU Tattoo Supply. I own Permanent Makeup Designs Academy. I do a lot of work with Layla. She's one of our top suppliers. And I'm an independent artist as well. So what I like to teach and what I want to offer to the group is kind of going back to the basics. My background is science. And when I came into this industry, I came in tattooing cleft palates and working with cancer patients and doing all of the hard stuff, scar reduction and camouflaging first. And then I went mainstream into the brows, the lips, the eyeliners, because all my friends and family were saying, well, if you can do all of this stuff for these medical patients, why can't you do some of this stuff for me? So I think we have to go back to the basics sometimes, because when I started in this field, I did everything that I think everyone else has done. And there's amazing, amazing artists on this panel. But, you know, if I watched Emily and I watched her and I liked her work, I would go buy that machine and I would buy those pigments and I would buy those cartridges, and then I'd wonder why my work didn't look like Emily's. So we have to all kind of at some point, I think, go back to the basics. So this is just going to be a little bit on tattoo machines and cartridges. There's a real window of opportunity for artists now. When we started many years ago, we worked with single cam machines. Many people remember like an Evo Contour machine, or that you remember like a Skin Master machine or something like that. And that's what we had, and that's what we worked with. If you had a fancy machine, then you had a single cam machine, but you had a button that would say eyes and lips and brows, and you would just push that button and that's all we knew. So we have a real window of opportunity now with these rotary machines coming onto the market, and then along with the rotary machines, we have all these cartridges. So this is just going to be a snippet. So the single cam machines, you guys, are what I referred to before, like with a NC or something like that. It just has one cam inside of it, and the cam is the strength of the machine. So coming from PMU, we were traditionally used to cams and machines that were about like a 1.8, 1.7, 1.9. Okay. Then from the single cam machines, when the rotaries came in, we had the option of going to a multiple cam machine. So one of those machines was the Zion S, and we were able to go from a 1.8 cam to a 2.5 cam. And we literally did that by opening up the machine, taking out the cam and putting it in, closing the machine, wrapping the machine. If we wanted to change that cam, then we take the machine apart and put in another piece. This gave us a lot of options that we never had before. And as PMU artists, it was a pretty easy transition, because we started with that 1.8 cam and then we went up to a 2.5, which is a little bit stronger and gave us a little bit more wiggle room for different techniques and things that we wanted to do. Now we have machines like the Valhalla that are one single cam, but they have multiple strokes. So now we can take a machine and we can go anywhere from a 2.5 cam all the way up to a 4.2. So this is a really wide range. And I think you guys will understand why this is so important, because if you talk to a body artist, you know, they for years and years, they've had multiple machines. They have a machine that they line with. They have a machine that they shade with. They have all different machines to accomplish what they want to, the techniques that they want to do. And that's the ability that we have now. So something really easy, I just want you guys to remember, because this is an introduction, is whether you're talking about a cam or you're talking about a stroke length, the lower the number, the softer the hit is to the skin. So if you've got a 2.5 cam, that's going to hit the skin softer than if you have a 4.2 cam. And if you just remember that simple equation, the lower the number, the softer the hit to the skin, then you're going to be okay. So now as we start to do different procedures like the eyeliner or the lips or areolas, we can adjust our cams and use one single machine. So remember I said back here, the lower the number, the softer the hit is to the skin. So that's what I want you to think about when you're doing your procedure. So for example, an eyeliner, you're going to start out with like a 2.5 cam. If you're going to do eyebrows and lips, you're going to be anywhere between 2.5, somewhere in the 3s, maybe up to 3.4, 3.8. And if you're doing areola work, removal work, scar work, things like that, that you're on thicker skin, denser skin, or you really need to pack that pigment in there, then maybe you're going to be working somewhere between a 3.4 and a 4.2 cam. So the reason that this is so important, you guys, this is just a little diagram I drew for you to remember how the cam works. If you have a 1.8 cam, it comes back 1.8 millimeters and then it shoots that needle forward. If you're working with a 4.2 cam, it pulls it back 4.2 millimeters and then shoots it forward. So this 4.2 is going to hit the skin much harder than the 1.8, because those of you that like use a bow and arrow or drop a rock from a 10th floor story building, you know, the further something travels, the more resistance it's going to have, the more speed it picks up and the harder it's going to hit. So this is an example of why you don't want to take a 4.2 cam and go to work on an eyeliner, especially if you are not used to using these different strength cams, because you're working on the thinnest skin on the body and you're hitting it with one of the hardest cams that are available to artists, okay? The other thing is it depends on the techniques that you're doing, you know, whether you're lining or shading or pendulum. If you're lining, a lot of artists will use a higher cam because you want to hit that skin harder. You want to produce a really nice hair stroke or a really nice line, and you don't want to go over it that many times. If you're doing something shading, like Emily said, you don't have to count your passes, but you know that you don't want to hit the skin as hard as if you're lining, because you want more of a powder effect, right? Or if you're whip shading or pendulum, it depends on the sensitivity of the skin. So I just threw a couple pictures in here real quick because I think that we need to understand. I have a lot of classes that teach, you know, the fundamentals of tattoo, the fundamentals of paramedical tattoo, the fundamentals of machines, and the fundamentals of needles. And it actually, if you purchase a machine from me or through Layla, you get a free class, because it's that important to me that you learn about the machine and the cartridges, because you could take, two people could take my exact same class and end up with two different results. So you can see on the left side of your screen, this person, this student did a whipping and pendulum motion, and they sent this picture to me. There is no saturation in this brow at all. And you can see that this was difficult skin to work on. I did try to crop them because these were students, so I didn't want to show the identity of the pictures. But you can see the rootiness. You can see that this is difficult skin to work on. But this person got no implantation at all. Now this client, this student, this was an alopecia client, very red, very rooty, very difficult to work on. And you can see that there's total saturation in there, even a little bit more saturation as you get down into the tail. But this can be a matter of what machine you're using, what cartridges you're using, and how well you know your machine. So remember, your machine is an extension of your arm, right? And you have to be best friends with it. You have to know how to use it. You have to know what setting to put it on to get the techniques and the results that you're after. And so this I just put in here real quick. This was a blow up. This was also a very difficult patient. This was an alopecia patient with eyeliner, but you can see the redness in the skin. You can still get the pixels and you can still get the dots by using the right setting on your machine. So this one was probably hit way too hard, too high of a cam setting and too much pressure, because when you start to use these rotary machines, you have to just glide across the skin and you let the machine do the work for you. You don't have to do pressure and use the pressure that we used to have when we only had a single cam. And then you have to understand the cartridges too, you guys. So there's acupuncture, short taper, long taper. And this is just a picture. It's an exaggerated picture to show you the difference. But I know Alice talked about microblading and the smaller needles, the smaller surface area, and you're implanting less ink into the skin. You've got to understand what you're using. So if you're whipping or pendulum, you want something a little bit more rounded that's not going to snag the skin. If you're going to be shading, you want a shader, something that's going to give you a little bit more surface area. And a liner or a longer taper needle is going to be very pointed and have very little surface area. So if you're doing passes, and you may need to do more passes if you're using something like a liner versus a shader, and even less passes if you're using an acupuncture and you have more surface area. And the other thing that affects that surface area, you guys, is the diameter of the needle. So we call a nano needle, a bug pin is a 0.25, and we call a nano anything smaller than a bug pin. So you can go in PMU anywhere from a 0.20 or smaller up to a 0.35. This is going to all contribute to your surface area, you guys. So it's important to choose the right type of needle, the right diameter, and it's important to choose the right machine for you specifically and the techniques, the procedures that you're going to do. So that's it, Layla. I will stop that share screen.
Amazing. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I know that was really fast, but there's so much to learn about machine and needles, and I think it's so important to learn the basics about those things and then move forward with all of your different classes and learn the techniques and different styles that are available.
Definitely. And I mean, before I met you, Mary, I didn't actually have a clue when it comes to cams and things. And when we switched from like a PMU device, I think the Zion was the first one I got. Was it the Zion that we got first?
Yes.
And it was like, what does this even mean, 1.8 and 2.5? And it's something that we're not always taught as standard. And actually, most of my knowledge now from rotaries comes from Mary. So Joanne, how do I check the cam on the Zion?
You have to actually take it apart. So you've got your grip, you hang on to your grip, and then you take the other and you just go in opposite directions. And the cam is a little silver piece. If you ordered the Zion S, it came with the 2.5 cam in it, and the 1.8 cam would have been in your box, and they're labeled on the top. You can see the numbers on the top.
Yeah, so yeah, just have, if you just look, if you've never changed it, then you'll have the 2.5 in there, and then you've got a 1.8 in the box. Gal, on the Valhalla, the dial is actually on the outside, so it's literally, you just twist it and you can change your cam that way, which is why I love it, because you don't have to take nothing apart.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, Claire said don't lose the tiny screw. When you unscrew it on the Zion, just unscrew it a little bit, but still leave the screw in. You don't need to take it all the way out, because once that drops, we've done it. We've lost one.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, so still got 100 people in here. We must be doing all right. When will you have the acupunctures back in stock? They are on their way. They should be arriving this week. Okay, so next up we are going to jump to Callie, who is going to be talking to you just a little bit on the importance of posture and positioning. And again, sometimes it's things that we, I'm just trying to find her, there she is, things that we just forget about or we don't pay enough attention to. So I love this topic. Okay, hello. Oh, look at her. Hang on. Oh, you're there. You go on.
See me? Yeah. Hello, everyone. Thank you for everyone. Yeah, I'll just start. I've got a couple of notes written down, but I haven't prepped anything, so I'm just going to go with it. And then obviously if there's any questions, then shout them over. So I'm going to talk about not only position, posture, but I'm going to talk about eyesight and lighting as well, because it's something that when you start off in the industry, you focus so much on learning the techniques and the pigments and the needles and everything about the actual treatment itself, but sometimes you don't look at yourself and how you're sitting and how your light is in your room and what your eyesight's like. So whenever I've got people that come in to do training, the first thing that I'll do is look at them, and it is looking at how they're sitting on their chair, it's how they're holding themselves. And I know obviously it's different when you're doing a training session because you're quite nervous, you're not in a room that you know, so you might not be in your right position. But when you're doing permanent makeup for the time that we do our treatments for, you really, really need to be in a comfortable position that you can actually then go and do more treatments without knackering your neck or your back. So I was going to talk about posture on purpose as well. So there's lots of chairs and there's really good like saddle stools and just normal stools. that you can get, which is really good for you to look after your body. Lots of people do Pilates, yoga, things like that to strengthen their core. And I even saw somebody on Instagram, I don't know, I can't remember what her name was, but she was actually doing exercises, and she's a permanent makeup artist. She was on her chair, and before she started work, she did stretches on her chair. So that's something new for us. So she did lots of stretches on her chair, and she was just basically getting herself ready for work, because obviously there's nothing worse than your back going halfway through when you're working. So that's obviously looking at you as an artist, making sure that you're looking after yourself. Then obviously when you're doing your treatment, you need to decide where you're going to sit. Are you a person that sits from behind to do your treatments, or are you a person that sits from the side? Do you lean over that person, the client? Another thing to take into account is obviously where your client is on your bed. And I've seen it as well a lot, where people are too scared to get their client to move. They won't have the client close enough to them. So if you're doing an eyeliner treatment or a lip treatment, or if you are a person that does your brows from one side and leans over, you need to have the guts just to say to your client, do you mind just moving over yourself a little bit? Because people are too scared to actually ask, and it's so silly, but you'll end up doing yourself in because you can't reach properly. One thing as well is to ask about their neck. What we do without realising is we're moving people's heads left and right, left and right, left and right sometimes. So just to make sure that they've got a good neck, because there's nothing worse than that person being uncomfortable. So just make sure that they are fully mobile if you are, especially like eyeliner, when you're doing one side to the other. So that's about you and your posture. I would also say make sure that your feet are anchored to the floor. And I know that sounds really stupid, but if you're sitting on your stool and you're doing your permanent makeup, whatever treatment you're doing, whether it's anywhere in the body, areola or face, if you haven't got your body sat down where it's anchored to the floor, then how can you expect to get these crisp lines and this needle that's like 0.25 precise needle? You can't expect it just to go in. You need to make sure that everything around the treatment is anchored. So I always make sure that my feet are both flat on the floor. Without thinking, I'll do that. Sometimes I might have my feet up like one on the side, but then I know I've done it and it automatically puts me off. So just take a look at yourself, how you're working. There are people out there that obviously, when I first started, I put these beautiful specs on. You can see, oh my God, look. You can actually see my eyes. These are magnifying glasses, and these are normal glasses from Specsavers. But I have also got a whole drawer full of the ones, and I think Gemma's the same as me. You have a drawer full of ones from like Superdrug, Boots. You just pick them up. They're just magnifying glasses. But the biggest thing to be careful of is don't ruin your eyes, because I went to the opticians and I asked her for some stronger glasses. Because I went to Superdrugs and picked up +3 ones, and my eyes were like mad. And she said, by the time you get to X age, you'll have knackered eyes. So just be careful, don't go too far. So when you're looking at these loops, like the dental loops, you know, like you've seen some people wearing proper heavy duty eyewear, just be careful. The longer time that you do that to your eyes, you're straining your eyes. So look after yourself, obviously. This is all about you as an artist. These are really good, these ones, these magnifying ones, but I find that they hurt my nose, so I don't like things that hurt, so I just went to bifocals. It's proper young, isn't it? Bifocals. So there you go. So I would say get your eyes checked. And then we come on to lighting. So when you're looking at your client, a lot of people have, at the moment, they have the ring lights, and the ring lights are absolutely amazing. I've got them everywhere. The thing is with the ring lights, when you're working, you can potentially create your own shadow. So if you're working, you've got to be aware of where your ring light's positioned, because if you're trying to do a lovely crisp hair stroke and you're in the shadow, you need to make sure that your lighting is suitable. One thing about the lighting around your room as well is it's not a bad idea to turn off any spotlights and just have your ring light on, because then you won't cast shadows. Or the alternative is to look into headlamps. Now, Layla, do you wear one as well?
Love them. I can't work without them now.
No, neither can I.
We have a right treat, but...
So for any of you that don't know what the headlamps do, They are focused headlamps. You turn them on. This one is a rechargeable battery. I look like a mental person. Start with all my gear, and I'm like, right, what are we going to do today? So the only thing with headlamps at the moment is the visors, and that's the problem I've got. So I've got a whole drawer of visors. I'm still trying to find one that works.
Have you tried the goggles? Because you know they changed the thing to say we can wear safety goggles.
I've got goggles. So I've got goggles like these, but then honestly, what do we look like when we're working? But
that's what I'll wear with my glasses underneath.
That's all I was just going to say, like goggles, visors. At the moment during PPE, we have to make sure that we've got everything on. For areola work, I don't need to use my headlamp, so I'm lucky for areola. I can just use my ring light. So for all of you that always use your ring light anyway, you're fine. But for us lot that have now trained ourselves to use headlamps, we're struggling. But the difference with this light versus a ring light is that this is directional focus light. So wherever you move your head, the light will follow where you're moving. So if it doesn't affect where you're sitting. You don't worry about a shadow going through the light or the ring light. And one thing I found as well, because of the amount of work that we're doing with our eyes and we're focused, we're concentrating, I was finding I was getting a lot of migraines, probably to do with everything in life. But I do think it was the fact that I had 3 ring lights on at once, because I had one here, and one here because I was casting shadows. The heat that was coming from the ring lights, and obviously the I was working underneath them, I was like, I can't do this anymore. So I managed to find a headlamp. So if you are using ring lights, that's amazing. But there are options out there to look at a different source, a different light source. So that's all I was going to, let me just see. I've got a list of things down. And then I'm quickly just talking about anchoring in your position again. So actual treatment when you're working, what you need to do, and done any of the training, I think that anyone out here will always say to you, you need to make sure that your hand is anchored down. If you're doing crisp hair strokes, or doesn't matter what treatment you're doing, you need to make sure that your hand is anchored to the person. You need to have a stable position for your machine. So if you're working, I would always have my pinky finger out, because that's my pinky finger, it's magic. It will allow me to have full control over my machine. But my hand and my wrist will probably be anchored on their chin, their face, their forehead. My arm will probably be somewhere on their body, because I'm really not fussed. I'll put my arms all over them. And then, yeah, so when you look at yourself, think about where your hand is, because every single element of your body should really be touching something, not air tattooing in the middle of nowhere where, I don't know, you just don't have grounding that you need. You look at a painter, and if you watch a painter who's doing a painting on the wall, and sometimes, I don't know if you've ever seen it, but they have a massive long stick and they lean on the stick and then they paint like this, because what they've done is they've rested their hand so that their hand can do the beautiful work. So it's about looking at you as an artist. Get someone to video you and have a look at how you sit, and have a look at how your hand position is. Have a look how you're holding your pen. Because if you do want to get those crisp hair strokes, because I know it was a question that someone messaged the other day, didn't they, about how do you look at getting crisp hair strokes? And I think it's about you being completely grounded, completely focused. You are on the end of that needle, as in you are as a person on the end of that needle. You watch it go in, you've got your lovely stretch, you're completely in control, and then you can create lovely hair strokes. So everything comes into one to make sure that you can do that end treatment. So I think I've covered everything there.
Amazing. I love this topic. I'm just going to have a quick look at questions while you're there. How many times magnified are them glasses? Gal is asking.
My ones, the normal bit of it is my normal glasses. So I'm long-sighted, so I don't need to wear glasses. So the top bit of it is so I can look around the room. The bottom half of it is, I think it's +7.5 of my normal prescription. These ones come though, and there are lots of artists that wear these. These ones, I think you can change this slide bit. You can change it to be different magnifiers. Debbie's nodding because I think, do you use something like this? Or have you? Yeah. You can change this bit. So this bit is like +3 or something. But yeah, really cool.
Your eyes look hilarious through that.
You'll be amazed at how you can see. Like, I know it sounds stupid, but I'm not kidding you. You get people in that have never used them or tried them before, and they will actually see what they're doing. And it's like, oh my God, you can actually... So it's amazing. So there is some little top tips there. So headlamps, lighting, eyesight, getting yourself comfortable, position.
Flat back.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, without thinking it actually. But then when you look at me, I'm probably like that, hunched.
I have the worst posture, and I am paying for it now. Like, I've got all sorts wrong with my back through bad posture. I must say, actually, though, Darren, I'm coming to Darren next. Me and Claire had to comment on Darren and Jasmine's posture in their webinar. I was like, that is like perfect posture throughout their whole work. Like, how do they stay like that? It was brilliant. It was like great for teaching, because if you watch me work, I'm like all hunched over.
Yeah, I think I'm a bit hunched over, but I try to adjust myself. And one thing I forgot to say is actually I do move my stool up and down throughout treatment. So if I'm behind the person, I'll be higher up on my stool. And if I'm round the side of the person, I'd be lower down. So don't be scared to move your chair, because when you first start out, and I know a lot of people in this room have been doing it for years, but when you first start out, you do ask that question: where do you sit? How do you sit? Do you change what do you do with your chair? Then no question stupid, but actually I do. I change my chair throughout the treatment. So just make sure that obviously you're wrapping your chair, because if you're touching your chair throughout treatment, either you take your glove off, move it up and down, or make sure you keep wrapping it. That's one thing you've got to remember to do.
Yeah, if you're going to touch it. Oh, Ian said he's got a back roller and stretches his spine in between clients, stops him from getting stiff. That's what I need to do.
My kids have got rollers.
I can't even walk by the time I finish a day in the clinic.
Got to get on the bike after as well, haven't you?
Oh, don't start me on that one. We've got a Peloton group on Facebook, and they're all like messaging every day, who's coming on, and I just sort of skip through the messages. Maybe tomorrow. Yeah, brilliant tips, Callie. Thank you. And it's such an important thing. Even just making yourself more aware when you do go back of how you are sitting and how you are positioned. It is really important, especially long term. I was going to say that a good headlamp brand, because this is one thing that everyone asks as well, is LED Lenser. LED, L-E-N-S-E-R. They're the best ones that I've found so far. Hang on.
Because everyone's got a different favourite, haven't they?
Yeah.
Probably back to front, but yeah, LED Lenser, really, really good. Make sure it's the chargeable one and not the battery pack one. But yeah, they have been a lifesaver. I love it. I don't know where I'd be without them. They're amazing.
Yeah, because some of them are quite heavy as well, aren't they? Like, I've bought some and they're quite heavy and they hurt my head. And then there's other ones that are so light and comfortable.
They're amazing. Very, very good.
Okay, amazing. Thank you very much. Right, let's find Darren.
He's run away.
Done a runner. Oh, here he is. Hang on. I don't know what's going on with my fingers. There he is. Hello, Darren.
Hello, everyone. You all right?
So, Darren is going to have a chat with you about some tips on red flag clients.
Yeah, so basically, obviously listening to everyone's talked about a few topics and it kind of touches on a few things really, but just for example, Ian mentioned earlier about struggling at first and not liking working on redheads. Mine was kind of the absolute opposite really. So I was getting quite a lot of clients that kind of fall in the Snow White kind of category with really, really dark hair. They need a really dark pigment for it to suit, but they've got obvious red flag, really cool undertones. So most people, like myself, just work with like a one round liner, single needle. And the only kind of thing that to start off with that I was doing to sort of help with preventing really ashed out, healed results was adding a modifier to my pigments. And even by doing this, I found that they were still coming back. It was inevitable they was going to come back too cool. But what I ended up doing was making a point of just not necessarily on clients, but I literally bought every different kind of needle that there was, and I would practice on latex just to get familiar with it, and so that I was able to use it. Even though I use a single all the time, I learned that by using a single needle, it will always heal cooler than if I was using a shader. I prefer using a single needle on the majority of my clients, but if I get a client that comes in that's a red flag and they're obviously going to heal quite cool, and I do need to use a dark pigment, I'll do a couple of things which I thought I would share tonight. So it really helped me over time, and I noticed the difference in my health results with these types of clients, and now I really enjoy getting these clients. So first of all, it would be to use a larger configuration of needles instead of a single. You'd still be shading, pendulum, whip shading, or circular motions to shade a powder bra. But with a larger configuration of needles, it will heal warmer than using a single needle. Besides that as well, just increasing my hand speed as well. So the slower you work, it tends to implant more pigment, more saturated, so you're going to get a cooler healed result. So slightly faster hand movement with a larger configuration, and also what I introduced to using on these clients as well was, instead of using just the target pigment with a couple of drops of modifier, I would set up potentially 3 ink cups and start off with the first base with a warmer medium value brown, and sort of work my way up to the colour that I wanted it to be. So my base colour would be lighter and warmer, and then slowly increase it until the top layer I would then potentially add my target colour that I wanted. So I found that instead of sticking to this single needle that I'd learnt with and just using a modifier to sort of build up my layers, using a larger needle and also layering these different colours really, really helped with preventing from an over ashy heel.
Amazing.
So that's kind of completely different to some of the other issues that we have with sensitive skin and redheads and etc. But I get quite a lot of these clients. They've got really, really dark hair, almost black, but they've got the palest skin, really porcelain. I know that they're going to be blue, so I have to really target the base colours of the pigment that I'm going to choose to neutralise their undertones. But really, I've really found that changing my needle was a massive, massive difference in the healed results.
Yeah, brilliant. I'm a big fan of layering colours actually. I do find layering definitely has a better healed finish than just modifying.
Absolutely.
I do it a lot with my eyeliners as well to stop them ashing out. So yeah, that's a great tip, Darren. Thank you. Alex is asking, would you do pendula with a 5 shader? Like, would you still do a pendula or a whip shade?
I tend to not. As soon as I move from a single to a shader, you can. But for me personally, I end up doing more of a circular. Just spreading that pigment around, keeping it light in areas. If you think of using an aerosol can and you're doing some spray paint on the wall, if you hold it in one position and spray it, it's going to be quite saturated in one spot. But if you move it around, you're going to spread that pigment out nice and airy, and it's going to keep it more warm.
Amazing. Okay, thank you very much. Honest to God, I don't know what I'm doing anymore. There we go. I can't work Zoom anymore. Yeah, brilliant tips, Darren. Thank you. And don't be scared of the bigger needles. We all do it, don't we? We get stuck in a rut. Single needle, single needle, single needle. There's so much choice out there, and sometimes single needles, they're not always the best needle for the job. Ian said
just use them, practice, use them on latex. Although latex isn't obviously as realistic as skin, but you can still see how that pigment's going to lay in, and you can get familiar with how they work and how to change your pressure. You do need more. You don't want to go too much, but you are going to obviously need a little bit more pressure with a soft edge 9 mag than a single needle just to get penetration. But you will learn that just as you're using them. Like, a lot of people just don't bother trying, but you should. There's no harm in just getting a bit of latex and just trying all different needles just so you get used to them.
Yeah, definitely. And what I always say to my beginner students is it's just a bit of latex, like you can't mess it up.
Exactly. Don't practice on people's faces, but
yeah,
latex is fine. Just try it.
But people get scared to even like do something different on a mat, and it's like that's how you learn. Like, have a play with it, and if you don't like it, you don't like it. So yeah, amazing. Sam says she always worries about not much precision when using a bigger configuration. They're not as big as they sound, I think, sometimes. Especially if you're not used to using bigger needles. They're not actually loads bigger, are they? Do you finish with a 1 sometimes still though, Darren?
Oh yes, I was going to say that. So what you can do, if I'm going to finish with a 1, it's going to be because the skin's good and I still want to get that Instagram picture, because the healed result is not going to affect it. So if the skin's good and I know that I can layer at the final pass, just layer that dusty effect over the top of what I've created, I will do it. If the skin's quite porous, oily, problematic skin, I wouldn't bother. It's not we don't post all of our work at the end of the day. That's the truth. We might do 4 or 5 clients in a day and we end up posting 2, not because it's bad, but it's just not it's not that Instagram picture without obviously all the filters, etc. So yeah, I will if I think I'm going to create a picture out of it, but it's not going to affect the healed result. It's not going to do anything in that terms. But if I'm going to post it, yeah, I will potentially dust it up at the end with a single.
Yeah, amazing. Really good tip. Thank you very much. Kim said, would ashing show on a practice mat? Normally with depth, you can kind of see that you've gone too deep on a mat. If anything,
if it's on your table, you've gone too deep.
You come through the other side. Brilliant. Okay, so still got 95 of us on it. Thank you for everyone still on it. I know it's not been a quick Zoom, but when do we ever do a quick Zoom? Okay, so next up we have got the lovely Paula. I just need to find her. And something a little bit different now for you. Paula is going to talk a little bit about drawing and observation. So let's bring Paula on. One of the most artistic people I know.
Oh, thank you, Leila. Hello, everybody. I'm so sorry about this super quirky angle that I've got going on, but I'm plugged into the charger at the minute, so I'm so sorry. Yeah, I thought I would come on and just have a little talk, and if anybody's got any questions, please ping them over. Just about drawing. People that know me will know that I draw a lot. It's in my heart and in my blood, and I love it, and that's why I do what I do. And what I see a lot on the forums, and also with people who come to me for mentor days and during training, the drawing scares the life out of people, including me. It scared me too when I first started, and it shouldn't. It should be the bit that's your absolute, I can do this, it's not a problem, but it's how you get to that point. And it's just knowing that it's not that scary, and it's okay to do things different than you've been taught. Too many people say, I have to make these lines, I have to make these guidelines, I have to use this template. No, you don't. No, you don't at all. And I believe that with everything that I have, because everybody's face is different. And what I'll always like to sort of say to people is, look at your client. Forget all the stuff about the templates and the brow daddy eyebrows and the things that you see on Instagram. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. You want real, you want brows that are going to age well, you want things that are going to last and be timeless. And to do that, you look at a person's facial structure, not what you see in a magazine and not what you see on Instagram. And I do harp on about these things quite frequently because it's true. It's true, and I know that the Instagram pictures are beautiful, but your client doesn't want that. That's not what they're looking for. And to do that, you need to look at somebody's face. You need to look at where their brow bone sits. You need to look at their eye socket. You need to look at everything on their face. And that's true about colour as well. It's true about how you modify things and all the things everyone else has spoken about tonight. It's just true. It's just one of these things. And the biggest tip I can give people is it's only pencil. If you get it wrong, wipe it back off and do it again. It's just not a big deal. It's just pencil. Somebody will wait 10 more minutes to draw it back on again. So it's fine to do that. So that's my biggest thing. Look at people, not what you were taught in your training. Of course you're going to use those skills, but actually remember to look at someone. And if you can't see it, walk away for a minute. Tell them you're going to the loo, tell them you're going to change your gloves, tell them you need to go and get something, and then come back and have a look again. And you'll see things that you haven't seen previously. This one I've probably told everyone that's listening, and I talk about this a lot. I draw upside down. And I've told Layla this, and I know she said it was a bit weird, but it's not actually weird. When you draw upside down, you use a different part of your brain. You draw shapes, and you will see shape, shadow and light, and you won't draw what you think an eyebrow looks like, because when you look at something face on, your brain will draw what it thinks it should look like. So you will automatically draw a tadpole eyebrow. You will do it, because I used to do it. But if you turn them upside down, the more logical side of your brain will kick in. And so try that as well. If you're struggling doing it sitting up, try it down. And that might be another way for you as well. I'm so sorry about this angle, it's really bad. That's not a pretty thing. I'm so sorry, everyone. Go with it. It's either that or I'm going to run out of charge. So yeah, and the other thing as well is I've seen a few people recently mentioning that they have to have this really crisp template outline. No, you don't. Draw it in. Just draw your eyebrow in if you want to. I colour mine in all the time, and it lets somebody have a look, and they can say, well, that's where the fade's going to be, that's where the tail's going to be. Do whatever works for you. I know that drawing's a big thing. Obviously, I talk about it a lot. I do talk about it frequently, but it's because it's so important. I'm actually a relatively new artist in the grand scheme of things. I've been doing this for about 4.5 years. But I've been an artist for 30 years, so I like to bring some of those drawing skills in to permanent makeup, and it actually made it really easy for me to transition. So I like to try and share that with everybody as well. But yeah, that's me. That was a wee quick one for you, Layla. Trying to claw some time back. But if anybody's got any questions, please fire them over.
Yeah, so any questions for Paula, pop them in the chat box. But yeah, it's so true what you're saying. Like, this is why I don't use stencils and things like that, because no two brows are ever going to be the same. We've got our mapping guidelines there to help you with a starting point, I guess, but it's important to remember that they are guidelines, and you do need to adjust to every single face shape. Exactly. I think sometimes when you're a beginner, there's too much to think about. You're so focused on that mapping step by step that then you forget about face shapes and just actually standing back and having a look. But yeah, that's a great tip. Just stand back, because I do that all the time. I'll sit them up and I'm close up, and then I'll kind of step back and have a look. Because you've got to look at the whole face, not just the brows.
A really big one actually is to look in the mirror. You'll see more in a mirror that's wrong than you will by looking at your drawing in person. So just get them to look in the mirror and stand behind them, and you'll see things all the time that way too. I just saw a little question from Gail. Yes, Gail, I lie them down and sit behind them. Yeah. I do that with my beginners sometimes. If your client sees something that you don't, like sometimes they'll be like, oh, that one's a bit higher, and you're looking and you think, no, it's not. I don't see it. I always say to my students, get them to look in the mirror and stand behind them and look at the reflection that they're seeing, because you'll see it much quicker and much easier. Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Paula.
Thank you.
Okay, brilliant. So we are almost there. Next, I've got Gemma, who's just going to be sharing some social media tips with you. So something a little bit different. If anyone has seen Gemma's new Instagram, the PMU Collaborative with her and Jade's Training Academy, branding on point. It looks absolutely stunning. Okay, so let's get Gemma up. Hello.
Hello. How's everyone? All good?
All
So I'm going to be quite short because we're getting kind of late, it's near my bedtime. So I'm going to be talking to you a bit about photo taking and Instagram and how they kind of work in partnership, and especially if you're a bit of a beginner, what to do to kind of get yourself started. So we're going to talk about Instagram first, and a bit about Facebook, to be fair. I kind of separate the two. Even though my Instagram posts to my Facebook, I kind of use my Instagram for, it's a younger clientele. It's more of your fashion, it's more for posting a bit about your life as well. So my Instagram, and the best tips that I've got are to keep your Instagram with a bit of a theme. So whether that is a bit of a colour theme, a bit of a theme in terms of your grid. So when you're first starting out, I know it's hard to keep the pictures of brows or lips, keep them coming. So think about things like a quote. Think about things like a top tip. So use Canva, use the same fonts each time. It's really simple things that are effective. So don't overcomplicate it. Keep it nice and simple, but keep your grid clean with a bit of a theme. That way, what will happen over time is that your potential clients or even people in the industry will get to know you from your Instagram as well. So it will become instantly recognizable. So they'll know that, you know, your color theme, like I'll know certain people as soon as I see it and I'm scrolling through that Instagram, I know that it's Callie's, for example, or I know it's Layla's from the colors that's being used, or the way that the photos are being taken. So think about that when you're starting out and when you're building your like social media. Think about what you're going to do. Think about your branding. I think branding is a massive part of it. You don't need to pay a lot for your branding. You don't need to pay a lot for your logos, but sometimes it is really good to get someone else involved. So I've always used a designer for all of my logos. And when I've had ideas and I've gone to them, they're like, yeah, but that doesn't go in with they're thinking about the bigger picture. They're thinking about your clients and what that image may kind of imitate, or kind of what it shows. So when I first started out, I wanted almost like splats of paint and stuff. They're like, that's more of an interior designer. And I was like, right, okay. So I think it does help by having someone else to take it apart and almost build it. So when we did the PMU Collective, we kind of took it apart, we had our ideas and we just gave it to her and she came back with so many different things. And I think that really does help. Okay, so overview, Instagram, keep a theme, keep a kind of colour, use Canva, keep it simple. And like I say, when you're building your grid to start with, if you need to build it with something else, so put your top tips in, put quotes in daily. I know that's what I did when I first started. I used quotes, and that actually helps you build your following to the point that when I had to keep thinking of a quote each day and go on Pinterest, and then I didn't need to as I was getting more work, basically. The other things about that is about posting and the times that you post. So we all know that we get up in the morning, we have a coffee and we scroll. So that's a good time to post. Lunch times, people that are in offices, they'll have lunch and they'll scroll. And then once they put the kids to bed or in the evening, they sit there and do a bit of scrolling. So really think about the times that you're going to post to make the most of each post that you put out, basically. Okay, so I'm doing this quite quickly. So this leads me on to photo taking. And I cannot stress enough that as a newbie, how much photo taking is so important. I know that there's a really good unit on PMU Circle as well. But when I teach the students, or what we're going to be teaching the newbies, it's just some really simple techniques that are going to help them with their photo taking. So the things that I do is I have 2 ring lights. 1 is good, 2 is even better. So when I'm taking my before and after photos, I turn every other light off in that room. So every other light source is off, and I actually close my blinds. So the only light source is my ring lights. I make sure 1 is positioned right over the head, and then 1 is either at the side, and I move that one around as I need to. With my camera, I always use the iPhone. I've got the 12 at the moment, and I love it. I find it is good enough for what I need on a daily basis. I make sure, and it's kind of a ritual now, that I clean the back of this lens every single time that I take a photo, and that's before and after. So every time I just literally clean it with my jumper or a tissue before I start. I make sure that I press the focus button. So I've got the grid up on this phone, and so I just focus it. When you're taking pictures of brows, make sure that you are taking a picture of the brow and not their lashes, not their nose. That's not what the client's looking at, that the potential next client is looking at. They're looking at the brows, so make sure that that is where the main focus is. Take loads and loads of photos. There's not enough photos that you can't take. So I always say, just literally take as many as you possibly can. So what I'll do is I literally go from one side and I literally just etch it around and go over to the other side and back around. I make sure that they're doing their eyes open, their eyes closed. And whatever pictures I've taken of my before, I make sure I take exactly the same of my after. So a little tip to make sure that if I've got their eyes open, I'll always get them to look at my hand. So literally I have it in the middle of the ring light and I just say, I'll just look at my hand. So it makes them focus up, because you know some clients, when you say open your eyes, they end up putting their eyeballs in the back of their head. And it just doesn't make for a great photo. So I just say, look at my hand, and then look directly up, and I know that focus of that before and after is going to be exactly the same. So I'll do that on both sides. And I just literally, like I say, slowly take it across. I also then do a video. So I do a video from the top, a video from the sides as well. And what you'll also be able to do is when you're looking back at your photos, sometimes one of the video bits is actually the best bit. So you just can screenshot a bit of the video. Okay. Once I've done that, you can then go on to the editing stage. Now, I really, really believe in not over editing my photos. And when I say I edit, I don't edit the actual brow. I might take out a pimple. I might take out, literally like a little scratch that they've got on the bottom. You've got to remember that you're posting someone's work, someone's brows, and they might be red. They might not be happy with that. If you can clean up a little bit around, that's good, but I don't airbrush that much. I literally just take out little tiny like marks or redness. And then I'll whiten the eyes. So I always whiten and brighten the eyes, because that's not something that, not something that's going to be changing what they're doing. I then will put it into my Instagram, and I just either brighten the picture or sharpen the picture. If I'm doing lips, I don't brighten because it changes the colour of the lips. On the brows, I just maybe make sure that the before and after pictures are the same brightness. Okay, so when someone's looking at my pictures, I think now probably most people will notice that they're my pictures by the way I take my angles, and that's what should happen over time for you as a technician. You'll have a bit of a way of you take your photos, and that becomes your theme. And obviously you can change it up, but it's just good to have something that's recognisable. I think that's it. So that's basically top tips.
Amazing. Great top tips as well. Super important. Yeah, and go and check out Gemma's Instagram, because I literally perv over it for ages. It's just so pretty to look at. Tanya said she puts a sticky tab on her ring light so that when they look up, they're always looking at the same place every time. That's a good tip. What apps do you recommend, Gemma?
So I use Layout for just doing the before and afters. and then I use airbrush just to take out the little pimples. So literally there's just one little part on it. Let me just put one up and then see what the thing is. So I think it actually is just called acne. So there's a little button called acne, and I'll literally just edit out any little spots, and that's really it on the airbrush. I don't use magic, I don't really smooth, I literally just take out the acne and I brighten and whiten the eyes, and sometimes the teeth, just to make it a little bit more appealing for them. I've got Lightroom and other ones, but I tend just to use airbrush and layout, and then I'll edit the rest, as in I'll brighten it when I'm actually into my Instagram, because I know what kind of number I tend to just go at.
Yeah, amazing. And there's so many apps, isn't there, now as well? I can't remember who it was. Someone done a big post, and it was just like, let people have pores, like stop over smoothing skin, like let them have skin. Was it you, Paula? She's got her hand up. It's like, let them have pores. But yeah, so I think it's enhancing, isn't it? It's not editing, it's just a little tweaking, a little bit of enhancing, because again, you still want your photos to look appealing, because that's what's going to sell your work. So it's trying to find that balance. I'm the same. I don't like to over edit. I don't like photos to look edited. But yeah, sometimes if there's something like a little tweak here or there with skin, then absolutely. Okay, and last but not least, we have our lovely Lucy, who managed to get in. And I'm gonna just find her. And then Lucy's just going to do some quick top tips with you on eyeliner, which we all know is her favourite treatment. Found you. There she is.
Hi.
Hi, we got you in.
Late to the party, as usual. Yeah, so I'm just going to have a really quick chat, because I know that everyone's probably at the end of their concentration levels now. I am. I'm usually in bed by now. Yeah, eyeliners. So I originally trained in 2014, and to say that I hated eyeliner was, well, it's a massive understatement, to the point where I would probably go out of my way not to do them. I would actively avoid taking bookings and rather not have the money. I hated them. Sort of just trundled through for a few years, and then trained with Layla. Not to toot her horn any more than already, but yeah, she kind of really instilled some confidence in me with the liners. And I started to use carbon, and that changed my eyeliner game massively, really. I find carbon really, really easy to work with. I know it's kind of a tricky one, and you need to be confident in what you're doing before you use it. But that was the game changer for me, and I went on to doing my wings and the more elaborate liners with the carbon. In terms of top tips, I think probably my biggest top tip for liners is to be a total brute with your client. Like, I will literally lay all over my client when I'm doing an eyeliner, and I think confidence to do that will really improve your results, because back in the day when I was struggling, I would think that I'd be stretching, when in actual fact I wasn't. I was being far too gentle and far too worried, really, about my client. I know that sounds a bit mean, but I just don't care now. I've got my stretch going, I'm laying all over the client. They literally cannot escape me. It's actually quite, I'd imagine, uncomfortable sometimes for them, because I am all over them. But having that stretch, that iron stretch, and being confident in that will improve your work massively. Another one, I think, is the vibration. I think we all teach this when we're doing beginners, is being able to feel the vibration in your stretching thumb. So like with implantation, you should be, when you're stretching that eyelid out, you should be able to feel your needle going in through your thumb. And I always, when I'm training people, will always say, if at any point you stop being able to feel that, you're not getting that pigment in there. So it's like learning to drive. You need to think about all these different things, and when they come together, you're going to get a good result. Another one probably is make a mess. So, as you know, by the time I'm done, I'm literally covered from head to toe in ink. I'm an utter nightmare, particularly because I use carbon as well, which is really watery, really messy. Don't keep wiping the eyes because you're just going to make them angry. There's no need to do it. Go right the way along your eyelid and then come back before you wipe. But yeah, it's just a combination of things, I think, really. And when it all clicks into place, you will get it, or I did anyway, with a lot of help from Layla. With my students, my biggest thing is barking at them to make sure that they're stretching. Because I think that it's just, even if you do feel that you're being brutal, you're not. If you do it a little bit more, you will notice that the pigment starts going in. I can see Layla laughing because she's exactly the same. But yeah, my top tip is the stretch. That is it.
Thank you very, very much, Lucy. Yeah, stretch, that's the one thing I drum into everyone when it comes to eyeliner. If your stretch is there, it's an easy treatment to do.
Yeah.
If stretch isn't, that's when you're going to hit swelling and you're going to struggle to implant. So stretch definitely, for me, for eyeliner is key. The better your stretch, the less painful it is for your client as well. When the skin's bouncing around and the needle's catching because you're not stretching, it's going to be a lot more uncomfortable.
I think as well, they feel more confident in you when if you are laying there and you feel like you can move your eye around and you've got some person coming at you with a needle near your pupil. It's not a very comfortable feeling. So if you feel like you're nice and secure and someone's got a proper grip on you, I think they tend to relax more as well, which makes your job easier.
Yeah, definitely. Oh my God. Hang on, sorry. I've just had a million notifications just come up over my screen for some reason and I can't see now. Hang on. Okay, so thank you. Sorry, I'm just clearing that. I can't do two things at once. I should have been a man, I'm telling you. Now, I was going to do, Darren's giving me thumbs down. I was going to do a little talk on teaching, but I am conscious that you have been sitting on here for 2 hours. So I might save it for another time. We did have a load of questions emailed in and Facebooked as well, but I've kind of been reading through them as we go, and to be honest, I think we have pretty much covered most of the questions that have come in that we can kind of talk you through. Some of them were more demo related, which might be a bit difficult. I'm just double checking. Now, I know Alice is not on here, but who else does microblading? Mary, you do, don't you? Does anyone else do? Kelly, do you microblade? I'm great. Good job, I'm good at lip reading. Hang on.
Layla, I don't want to jump in too much. I can microblade, I just don't.
Oh, can you? Okay, just because someone's asked, can you use different size hand tools to create thicker and thinner strokes? Now, I don't do manual method or blading, so I wouldn't have a clue. So if anyone wants to chime in.
Yeah, the blades come in all different sizes and diameters, just the same as they do with a needle for the machine. So depending on what you're looking to do, yeah, you can.
Amazing, thank you, Paula. Combination brows, do you do strokes and shading in one treatment or better to do in separate sessions? 100% you can put them both in as one session. Debbie, this would be a good one for you actually if you want to pop yourself off mute. Someone's asked, if you're doing combination brows and you're doing hair strokes and shading, what would you do with regards to Easy Flow and Skin Top? Would you have two separate pots or would you just use one or the other? Using Colour Essence, this was.
Yeah, I'd probably, to be quite honest, I'd probably use a drop of Easy Flow just to do the strokes, and then I would I know Holger's one for making 2 pots, but I don't like waste. So I'm then going to really, because the Easy Flow is just a colour activator really, and then just to make it more oily, I'm just going to put, I would then just add some skin top in.
So so it's all in the same pot?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's good to know. I've been using 2 pots, so that was save waste.
Yeah, so I always do my strokes first, and then and then I just add a couple of drops of skin top in, and it's absolutely fine.
Amazing, thank you. And whilst I've got you, I've got another one here. Other than real black, what other blacks or browns would you recommend for shading on eyeliners?
So the real black is, oh god, love it. And then there's something called Black Beauty, which is more of a softer charcoal. Ebony Queen is a really cool brown, which is lovely, and that's quite nice actually on sort of people with very fair lashes or very fair. And then obviously dark redwood is another one which is absolutely beautiful. But anybody with dark lashes, I would use real black through the lashes, and if you want to extend the eyeliner up or shade it, you could then maybe change the colour slightly.
Yeah, okay, amazing, thank you very much. How many drops would you use? So normally it's 2 to 4 drops to 10 drops pigment, Debbie, is that right?
Yeah.
I'll just chuck a couple of drops in.
Yeah, I have to say for eyeliner, I don't tend to, if I'm doing eyeliner on the eyelid, I don't tend to add anything. And I'm more likely to use Skin Top neat over the top of it.
That's a good tip.
And use the push.
Yeah.
So, but Ian was saying before about the witch hazel, the Skin Top is laced with, well, the colour essence has witch hazel in, but the Skin Top is laced with witch hazel. I mean, it is just, you know, the perfect scenario for calming things down.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you very much. All of the other questions that was sent in, I think we have pretty much already answered them, but if I have missed any and you are on here, feel free to chuck them in the chat box before we go. So just to kind of, oh, hang on. Kim said, when would you use a textured needle? Anyone want to answer that one? I think I don't really use textured needles. Oh, I've gone all blurry. Hang on. Lost focus. I tend not to really, but I know they are meant to be really good for control, like for a good ink flow, aren't they? Does any of you guys, Gemma, do you use textured needles? I can see you nodding.
I can jump in, Layla. I don't use them very much either, but that is definitely a smooth needle. If you think about it, the ink is just going to flow really easily down that needle, right? So you're going to get a nice even flow. With a textured needle, when that needle comes back up into the cartridge, it's textured, it's rough, so it's going to grab more pigment and bring it back down. So I don't personally use them. I know some artists do like to use them in lips, and some artists do like to use them in brows, but it's just going to affect the amount of pigment that is being grabbed and the flow of the pigment coming back out.
I always kind of think of them a little bit as unfinished because they're not polished, are they? But yeah, no. I know a lot about, I think Steph, she uses them for lips. She loves them on lips, but yeah, not one we really use much. Thank you, Mary.
You're welcome.
Always there with a great explanation. Okay, so I'm going to save my little one for another time. I'm always on Zoom, so you can always come join me. So that is your pro trainers, everybody. Everyone's on mute, so it's just me clapping. But yeah, that is your pro trainers. A massive thank you to every single one of our trainers for their time today and all of their tips. I hope you found it useful. Thank you to everybody that joined us. In the chat box, I have put 2 links, one for the artist development information page. So if you are interested in joining us on the artist development program, our first enrolment will be on the 28th of May, and they will be enrolment dates. So we will take a group of you on the 28th of May, and then the enrolment will close again. This is so that we can allocate the mentoring hours with each of your pro trainers effectively, and so that everybody knows where they are. So the enrolment is now open for May. We've got the pre-sale with £395 off for the first 10 people that sign up. I have posted the code and the checkout link in the chat box as well, but the code is first and then the number 10, first all in capital letters. So if anyone does want to snap that up, once they're gone, they're gone. We will only allow so many onto each enrolment, again because of ensuring that we can allocate enough mentoring hours out to everybody that joins us. If you still don't know what the Artist Development Programme is, head over to our Facebook group, the PMU Circle, the free group, and there is a video pinned to the top of there where you'll find me and Claire doing a live telling you all about it, and it's also on YouTube as well. If you are a PMU Circle Pro member, you will have an exclusive discount to the Artist Development Programme, but they can't be used together. So that will be £199 off, and you can use that whenever you want. So if you do miss the first 10 and you're a pro member, you've got that. And last but not least, David has also set you up a first month half price to the PMU Circle Pro for this week only. So if you're not in the PMU Circle Pro and you want to just come and see what it's all about, come and meet some of us in the group, get on the e-learning platform. We've got, what module number are we up to? 17? I think we've got 17 modules live on there now, and you'll get instant access to all of them. So you can go to pmucircle.com, you can enter the code PROHP, so PROHP, all in capital letters. That is only valid for this week though, so that will be, that won't work after this week. And I think that's us done. Let me just check the comments. Thank you. Amazing. I'm trying to buy the Valhalla, but it doesn't give me the option of a discount. Alex, the discount is only for the Artist Development Programme, so only if you're joining the training programme. So it's literally going to be the most in-depth online training out there. Me and Claire have spent months and months and months putting it together. And not only that, with the brow one, you get 6 hours one-to-one mentoring included. You get 2 pro trainers and 3 hours each with them. And you choose your pro trainer. Callie and no specs. That's it, Callie. I'm going to have to screenshot that one. That's going on Instagram. Okay, so that is us. The replay will go up tomorrow, and I will repost the links and the codes in case anyone has missed them. If anyone has any other questions that we've missed, you're more than welcome to pop it in the Facebook group or drop any of us a message. And I hope you enjoyed it and have a lovely weekend. And hopefully it might have helped you with a little bit of confidence ready for next week. So, to tattoo again. Okay, so thank you to all of our pro trainers for your time tonight. Much appreciated.
Thanks, Leila.
Thank you. Okay, and we'll see you all soon.
Thanks all. Take care. See you later.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.